AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. So this is going to be a long one, and I need to give some context. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, we were extremely close, though as adults we've drifted a bit due to life circumstances and distance. Our parents live in another state, so most family events have always involved traveling. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Ryan, 27M. I met Ryan a few times before the engagement, and honestly, I was unsure about him, but I wanted to give him a chance. Over the past year, however, my perception of Ryan has only gotten worse. He's controlling, passive-aggressive, and condescending, and Emily seems blind to it. I've seen him undermine her choices in front of others, make dismissive remarks about her career, and constantly try to correct her in subtle ways. I didn't want to interfere too much because it's a relationship, but the way he treats her is alarming. The situation escalated recently when Emily and Ryan announced their wedding plans. From the beginning, Ryan has been very involved, sometimes too involved, to the point where he's dictating things that are traditionally considered the bride's domain. For example, Emily wanted a casual, outdoor wedding in a local park, something that reflects both of their personalities. Ryan insisted on a formal, black-tie event at a country club, claiming it's more suitable for the guests and photographs. Emily reluctantly agreed. Then there were the guest lists. Emily originally wanted a small ceremony with just close family and friends. Ryan demanded that distant acquaintances, co-workers, and his extended family be invited, making the event more than twice the size Emily initially envisioned. Emily expressed discomfort, but he brushed it off, saying it's what people do for weddings. I started noticing little things during this period that made me uncomfortable. For instance, when Emily tried to voice her opinions, Ryan would interrupt, sigh dramatically, or roll his eyes. At a dinner with our parents, he corrected her pronunciation of a word in a condescending tone and laughed when she tried to brush it off. At a family Zoom call, he made comments about how Emily's career isn't impressive and implied that she should focus more on home life. I tried subtly defending her in those moments, but it always ended with me feeling frustrated and drained. A few weeks ago, Emily asked me to help with her bachelorette party. I agreed, excited to make it special for her. However, Ryan got involved in that too. He demanded to see the guest list, questioned the venue choice, and even suggested themes he thought would be more appropriate. Emily seemed torn but went along with him, saying she didn't want to upset him. During the planning, I made a few polite comments about respecting her wishes and her boundaries, but Ryan dismissed me, saying I was overreacting and that Emily was fine with it. The breaking point happened last week. Emily and I were shopping for her wedding dress, just the two of us, and I noticed she seemed anxious and quiet. I asked her what was wrong, and after some hesitation, she admitted that Ryan had been pushing her to buy a very expensive designer gown that she didn't feel comfortable in, insisting that this is the dress people will remember and that anything else would be disappointing. She also mentioned that he had asked her to cancel a pre-booked photography session with her childhood friend because he preferred a more professional photographer. At this point, I tried to reason with her calmly. I told her that Ryan's behavior seemed controlling and manipulative, and that I was worried about how it might continue after the wedding. Emily got defensive and said I was overreacting and that he just cares about things looking perfect. I tried to stay neutral but firm, saying that if the wedding continues to disregard her comfort and happiness, I wouldn't feel right attending. She looked hurt and said I was being dramatic, but I left the store feeling uneasy. Over the next few days, Emily called and texted me multiple times, tried to convince me to come. Ryan apparently told her that my absence would cause a scene and that he didn't want me there. I responded honestly, saying that I can't support a wedding where Emily's wishes are consistently ignored and where I feel uncomfortable around her fiancé. Emily hasn't spoken to me since, and our parents are upset, saying I should just put aside personal feelings for one day, because it's Emily's special day. My friends and coworkers are divided. Some think I'm right to protect my sister. Others think I'm overstepping and that my absence will create unnecessary drama. I genuinely love my sister and want her to be happy, but I feel like her happiness is being dictated by someone who doesn't treat her with respect. I've tried talking to her, being supportive, and even hinting that she should consider boundaries with Ryan, but nothing has changed. I feel like if I attend the wedding, I would be silently condoning his behavior and betraying my own values. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she made what I consider extremely irresponsible choices. I, 32F, have always been the responsible sibling in my family. I have a stable job as a project manager, own a house outright, and have a modest savings account that I worked hard to build over the years. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, has had a very different approach to life. She's intelligent and capable, but she tends to make impulsive decisions, especially when it comes to money and relationships. Our parents have always enabled her, and I think that's partly why she hasn't learned to manage her finances well. A few months ago, Emily called me in tears. She had just lost her apartment because she couldn't pay rent, her car had broken down, and she was weeks behind on her credit card payments. On top of that, she told me that she had just broken up with her boyfriend of 3 years, who had been her financial cushion for a lot of her lifestyle choices. She asked me for a loan to cover a deposit and first month's rent on a new apartment. At first, I was sympathetic. I have lent her small amounts before, but I have always made it very clear that it had to be paid back, and I was careful not to lend more than I could afford. This time, however, I hesitated. When I asked her for details about her plan for the new apartment, she told me she didn't really have one. She wanted to move into a bigger place than she could afford because she deserves better, and she assumed I would just cover the gap. I told her I wasn't comfortable lending her money without a concrete plan to stabilize her finances. She got extremely upset and accused me of being selfish, saying that I was her only sibling who could help and that our parents were too busy to care. I reminded her that I had helped her before, including co-signing a small loan for her car years ago, but that my help was never meant to cover repeated reckless decisions. She screamed at me over the phone, saying I didn't love her and that I was letting her fail. After the call, she blocked me on social media and sent multiple messages to our parents complaining about me. Our parents got involved and started pressuring me to do the right thing. They said that families should support each other no matter what, and that Emily was in a vulnerable position. I tried explaining that helping her in this case would only enable the behavior that got her into trouble in the first place, but they said I was being cold and judgmental. Things escalated when Emily found a way to move into the new apartment anyway. She got a short-term loan from a payday lender with astronomically high interest rates and immediately began spending money on furniture and decorations. Within a few weeks, she called me crying again because she had spent most of the loan on non-essentials and couldn't pay the first month's rent plus the lender's interest. She begged me to wire her money to prevent eviction. I told her no, once again explaining that if I kept bailing her out, nothing would change. She accused me of abandoning her, said I had ruined her life, and threatened to never speak to me again. The situation has caused a lot of tension in our family. Our parents are still mad at me, and Emily has kept her distance. I feel guilty sometimes because she is my sister and she is genuinely in a bad spot, but I also feel like helping her now would reward irresponsibility and make her less likely to learn from her mistakes. I've tried suggesting alternatives, helping her budget, finding financial counseling, or even helping her find a more affordable apartment, but she refuses to accept any advice that doesn't involve me giving her money. To make matters worse, some of her mutual friends have started commenting on how cold I've been and questioning why I wouldn't help family. I've gotten defensive because I feel like everyone is overlooking the fact that Emily's choices are largely her own, and that she has consistently ignored advice and warnings from both me and our parents. I am torn because I don't want to completely cut ties with my sister, but I also refuse to be her financial safety net. I've considered offering her a strict repayment plan with legal documentation if she wants help, but I don't know if that's realistic or if it would just cause more drama. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister money after she made poor financial decisions, even though it has caused family conflict and made her very upset. AITA for refusing to give my sister's boyfriend a place to stay even though he needed it. So a little background. I, 28F, live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in a city where rent is absolutely insane. I moved here a few years ago for work, and while it's cozy, it's enough for me and my cat, and sometimes my boyfriend, 33M, who stays over a lot. My younger sister, Emily, 25F, has always been kind of dramatic, but generally sweet. She lives in a different state and is always bouncing from one temporary job to another, never really saving any money, and often has crises that she thinks the world should solve for her. Anyway, Emily recently started dating this guy. Let's call him Jake, 27M. I had met Jake once or twice at family gatherings, and I thought he was okay, a little awkward, but fine. About a month ago, Emily called me in a panic. Apparently, Jake got evicted from his apartment in another city because he had been behind on rent, and now he had nowhere to go. Emily explained that Jake didn't want to live with his parents because they don't understand him, and she begged me to let him crash at my place for a few weeks until he got back on his feet. I was taken aback. My apartment is small, and while I like helping people, I don't know Jake well, and I really value my personal space. I try to explain this to Emily that it's not feasible for him to just move in with me, especially with my work schedule and my cat's anxiety around strangers. She got really upset and accused me of not supporting her relationship and being selfish. I tried to compromise by suggesting he look for a short-term sublet or even a hostel for a few weeks, but she kept insisting that it would be temporary and that I was making him out to be a villain for just needing a place to sleep. Fast forward a week, Emily called me crying because Jake had nowhere to stay. She said she would drive him up here for a couple of days, and he could sleep on the couch while he looked for jobs. I told her again, firmly, that this wasn't happening. She then guilt-tripped me over the phone, saying things like, "I can't believe you're making me choose between my family and the man I love, and he's going through a hard time. Don't you care about him at all?" I got angry and told her that I care about her and her happiness, but I also have to protect my own boundaries. She hung up, and I didn't hear from her for a few days. Then last weekend, Emily actually showed up at my apartment. I was off work and relaxing, and I opened the door to find her and Jake standing there with luggage. She says, "Surprise, we just wanted to come see you for a couple of days." I was floored. I told them immediately that this isn't a good time, that I wasn't prepared for guests, and that I still couldn't accommodate them. She started crying right there in the hallway, and Jake looked uncomfortable but stayed quiet. Emily accused me of being cruel, selfish, and the worst sister ever. I had to physically step outside to get some space because the shouting was stressing my cat. Over the next hour, we went back and forth. I offered to help them find a short-term rental or even give them some money for a hostel, but Emily refused. She wanted me to just let Jake stay for a couple of weeks. At one point, she said, "If you loved me, you'd let him stay." What kind of sister are you? I told her that love doesn't mean abandoning your own home, and that a relationship shouldn't put me in a position where I have no privacy, safety, or peace. Eventually, they left, with Emily saying she'd never speak to me again if I wasn't on their side. Now, a few days later, my parents and some mutual friends are subtly saying that maybe I should have just let him stay, and that Emily is going through a lot, and I should be more compassionate. Some friends also told me that it might have been nice to at least let him crash on the couch temporarily while we sorted out a plan. I honestly don't feel guilty at all. I value my boundaries and mental health, and letting a barely known person live in my small apartment seems unreasonable. But I'm starting to feel like maybe I overreacted or could have done something differently. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay with me, even though he supposedly needed it. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have a complicated relationship with my older sister, Mia, 32F, but I've always tried to be supportive. Growing up, Mia was the golden child, and I often felt like I lived in her shadow. Despite this, I always made an effort to celebrate her achievements and be there for her milestones. So when she got engaged to Ethan, 35M, about a year ago, I tried to put my jealousy and past grievances aside and be genuinely happy for her. At first, Ethan seemed nice enough. He's charming and articulate, and he made a strong impression on our parents. But over time, subtle things started to bother me. He would make passive-aggressive comments around me, like questioning my career choices or making jokes about how I wasn't as organized or successful as Mia. At first, I brushed it off as teasing, but as it continued, I realized it was deliberate. The wedding planning process was when the real issues began. Ethan insisted that the wedding had to be exactly his way and tried to control every detail. My sister tried to accommodate both of us, but he would undermine her decisions constantly. When she asked for input on the guest list, Ethan said things like, "Do you really need your work friends there? They're not family." He also demanded that I not sit near him at family dinners, claiming I made people uncomfortable, even though no one else had said anything. The breaking point came about 3 months before the wedding. My sister and I were talking about bridesmaid dresses when she told me she wanted me to pick one I liked so I'd feel comfortable. I showed her a few options, but Ethan immediately intervened. He said he didn't want me in a bright color because it would draw attention away from the bride. When I tried to explain that I was allowed to express myself and that I had always respected her as the bride, he scoffed and told me I was being dramatic. My sister didn't argue much. She looked uncomfortable and eventually said we could just move on. Things escalated during a family dinner at my parents' house a few weeks later. Ethan made a joke about me always being so uptight and serious. And when I responded sarcastically, he said, "You always have to make everything about yourself, don't you?" My parents looked awkward, and my sister tried to redirect the conversation. But Ethan continued to pick at me for the rest of the evening. I finally got up and left, saying I'd talk to my sister later. After that, I began reevaluating whether I wanted to be part of the wedding at all. I love my sister, but the thought of being around Ethan for multiple events leading up to the wedding, rehearsals, dinners, the ceremony, photos, etc., filled me with dread. I tried discussing my concerns with Mia gently, explaining that I didn't feel comfortable around Ethan because of how he treats me. I made it clear that my issue was with his behavior, not her. Mia's response was disappointing. She said I was overreacting and that I should just be an adult and put on a smile for one day, because it's her special day. I told her that I wouldn't attend the wedding unless Ethan apologized to me for his past behavior. I even offered to meet privately to clear the air, but he refused, saying, "I don't need to apologize for being honest about how you behave." My sister was furious at me for making this about me and started sending me guilt-laden texts about how I was ruining her wedding. She said that if I didn't attend, it would create a rift in the family and that I'd be the one responsible for her disappointment. A few days ago, my parents called me to pressure me into attending. They said it was unfair to Mia and that Ethan might feel humiliated if I didn't show up. I tried explaining that I didn't feel safe or respected around him, and that this wasn't about ruining the wedding, but about my mental health and self-respect. My mom said I was being selfish and told me that family obligations come first. I decided to stick to my boundary and not attend. I told Mia that I love her and I hope she has a beautiful day, but I cannot in good conscience be around someone who constantly disrespects me. I've also blocked Ethan on social media to avoid further stress. My sister hasn't spoken to me since, and some extended family members have called me cold or dramatic. I feel like I'm protecting myself, but part of me wonders if I'm overreacting. I don't want to destroy my relationship with my sister, but I also can't pretend that Ethan's behavior hasn't affected me. I keep going back and forth between feeling justified and feeling guilty. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? Character count, 6,425 if you want. I could draft a slightly longer version that reaches closer to 7,000 characters, adding more emotional tension, interactions with family, and detailed anecdotes from the wedding planning period. This would make it even more in line with highly viral Reddit posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house during my wedding week? 28F, am getting married next month. My fiancé, Mike, 30M, and I have been planning this wedding for almost a year, and it's been a stressful but exciting journey. We're having a small destination wedding in a town about 3 hours from where we live, and most of our close family and friends will be traveling to be there. Because the wedding is out of town, my parents insisted that they could host anyone who needed a place to stay, but I made it clear early on that the accommodations were limited and that they were responsible for figuring out logistics for their guests. Here's where the problem started. My younger sister, Lily, 24F, has been dating this guy, Jake, 26M, for about 8 months. They met through college friends, and she was really happy, so naturally, I was excited for her to be there at the wedding. A few weeks ago, she casually mentioned that Jake didn't have a place to stay for the wedding week because he didn't want to pay for a hotel. At first, I thought she meant they would just find a cheap Airbnb or split a room somewhere, but then she casually dropped that she was hoping he could stay at my apartment for the entire week leading up to the wedding. I was floored. My fiancé and I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and while we're happy to host friends or family for a night or two if they're traveling, having someone stay for an entire week, especially someone I barely know and don't particularly like, felt completely unreasonable. I tried to explain this to her, saying that we had our own pre-wedding plans, vendor meetings, and needed our space to pack, decorate, and get ready. I even mentioned that our apartment was small and that having an extra person around all week would be stressful. She said she understood, but then she started guilt-tripping me, saying that Jake was family now, and that it would be nice to have him there to celebrate, and that it would only be for a few days. I stood firm and told her that no, Jake would not be staying at our apartment. We offered her parents' house as a potential place to stay, and we suggested some nearby hotels, but she didn't like any of those options. She then accused me of being selfish and of trying to exclude him because she wants her boyfriend to feel included. At this point, I got frustrated and reminded her that she has been dating him for less than a year and that it's unrealistic to expect that someone should rearrange their entire living situation for him, especially during a wedding week. A few days later, she sent me a long text saying that if I didn't let Jake stay, she might not come to the wedding. She said that it feels like I'm choosing Mike over her and that she might bring drama to the wedding because she feels hurt and unwelcome. I was shocked. I tried to call her and explain that I wasn't trying to exclude her or anyone, but that we had to keep the apartment for ourselves and for the immediate needs of the wedding. She hung up on me and stopped responding for a few days. Now, my parents are also involved. They think I'm being unreasonable and that I should just let Jake crash for a few days to keep Lily happy. They keep telling me that weddings are about family and that I should compromise. My fiancé is supportive of my decision, but he's stressed because my family has started sending him messages too, saying he should be nice to Lily and Jake. The pressure is mounting, and I'm starting to doubt myself. I've considered letting Jake stay one night or two if it helps, but the whole week feels impossible, and I don't want to risk our pre-wedding plans being disrupted. I also feel like giving in now will just teach Lily that she can manipulate situations to get her way. On the other hand, I don't want to cause a huge family fight or have her skip the wedding entirely. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my apartment for a week leading up to my wedding. Some additional context I think matters. Mike and I have already blocked off the apartment for pre-wedding prep, packing, and rehearsal dinner preparations. Jake has met me maybe 3 times and hasn't ever visited our apartment. He is polite, but generally obnoxious and messy according to my sister. Lily's boyfriend staying would overlap with a few vendors coming in to set up decorations, fittings, and other appointments. Our place simply cannot accommodate everyone. My parents are trying to stay neutral, but I can tell they are leaning toward thinking I should be nicer to Lily. I feel like I'm standing my ground reasonably, but the family drama is exhausting, and I can't tell if I'm being overly rigid. AITA for refusing to give my mother access to my finances after she helped me buy a house. So a bit of background. I, 32F, have always been fairly independent, though my parents, especially my mom, 58F, have a tendency to hover. My dad passed away a few years ago, so most of the financial gatekeeping has been coming from my mom, and she can get really overbearing. I've tried to set boundaries, but she tends to push them when she thinks she knows better. My story starts a few months ago when I finally decided to buy my first house. I've been renting for over a decade and finally had enough saved up for a down payment. I work in tech and have a decent salary, but my mom insisted she wanted to help me secure my future by co-signing and putting some money down herself. I wasn't thrilled about this because she has a habit of acting like she owns my life, but she was offering a substantial amount, enough to cover part of the down payment and a few months of mortgage. I reluctantly agreed because I want to keep peace and thought, fine, she's just helping. Fast forward to now. The house is mine, and I'm very proud of it. I've been trying to manage everything responsibly: mortgage, utilities, renovations, etc. Things were going okay until my mom started to get weirdly involved. She asked to see my bank statements to make sure the money she gave me is being used wisely. I said no, explaining that while I'm grateful for the help, the house is in my name and my finances are private. She brushed it off and said she just wanted to be sure I wasn't making bad decisions. Then it escalated. She started sending me articles about financial mismanagement, asking if I really needed a new kitchen appliance or that she thinks I should invest differently. At first, I laughed it off, but it got more intense when she demanded that I let her log into my online banking just to check in. I told her that was not happening, and she accused me of being ungrateful and throwing away the help she gave me. The breaking point was last week. I was at work, and my mom somehow got access to my mortgage account without my permission. She called me in a panic saying, "Why did you pay extra toward your mortgage? You're wasting money. You should invest it." I was furious. She literally breached my account. I confronted her and told her that if she accessed my accounts again, I would have to consider legal action. She accused me of overreacting and said I should just accept guidance from someone with experience. Since then, I've been setting strict boundaries. I blocked her from any banking notifications and changed my passwords. She's been sending me passive-aggressive texts and emails calling me selfish and ungrateful. She even hinted that maybe I shouldn't have accepted her money if I didn't want her involved. My siblings, both younger, are divided. One thinks I'm right to protect my privacy. The other thinks I'm being dramatic and shouldn't upset Mom. I do feel a bit guilty because she did give me financial help. I know that without her, I might not have been able to afford this house right now. But at the same time, I don't want her controlling my life or finances. I'm not asking for advice on how to repay her. She insists she doesn't want repayment, but just to stay out of my accounts. I'm wondering if I'm being unreasonable by refusing her access completely and standing firm on these boundaries. So, AITA for refusing to give my mom access to my finances after she helped me buy a house. AITA for confronting my sister over her parenting choices, and now our family is divided. I, 34M, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 29F. Growing up, we were close at times, but we also had our fair share of fights and disagreements. Our parents always treated us fairly, but there was a clear difference in the way they handled our personalities. I was more reserved and studious, while Emily was outgoing, spontaneous, and often impulsive. That difference never really caused issues until we were adults, and now it's creating a rift in our family that I don't know how to fix. Emily has a 5-year-old daughter, Lily, who is bright, curious, and very affectionate. I've always loved Lily, and we usually get along well. The problem started when Emily began making parenting decisions that I, personally, found concerning. For context, I've never been shy about my opinions, and I've always valued structure and consistency in my life. Emily, on the other hand, is more of a go-with-the-flow parent, and while I've respected that in the past, some of her recent choices crossed a line for me. A few months ago, I went to Emily's house for a casual weekend visit. During breakfast, I noticed that Lily was wearing mismatched clothes that seemed dirty and smelled faintly of mildew. I asked Emily if she had washed Lily's clothes recently, and she brushed it off, saying she had been busy with work and other responsibilities and that it was just fine for now. I didn't press it further at that time, but it made me uneasy. Things escalated when I visited again for Lily's birthday party. Emily had organized a small gathering, and I noticed that Lily was running around barefoot in the backyard, climbing trees and playing in the mud. While I understand that kids getting dirty is part of childhood, what made me uncomfortable was that Emily wasn't monitoring her at all. She was on her phone, barely paying attention, and even when Lily fell and scraped her knee, Emily laughed it off instead of treating it seriously. I ended up cleaning and disinfecting the wound myself, which felt awkward and exhausting. After the party, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's parenting style was neglectful. I tried to bring it up gently in conversation later that evening, saying things like, "I just worry about Lily sometimes when she's climbing like that without supervision." Emily immediately became defensive and accused me of overreacting. She told me that I didn't understand what it was like to raise a child in the modern world, that kids needed freedom, and that I was being judgmental. I didn't back down. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing more instances that concerned me. Lily often not having snacks or proper meals at regular times, staying up past her bedtime, watching excessive amounts of TV, and being exposed to content I considered inappropriate. I began documenting my concerns, hoping I could have a rational discussion with Emily. When I finally confronted her again, she became extremely angry. She accused me of trying to parent her child and said I had no right to interfere. Our conversation ended with her yelling at me and threatening to limit my time with Lily. This is where the situation spiraled. I decided to talk to our parents about my concerns, hoping they might intervene or at least offer perspective. My parents were shocked, but told me that Emily was an adult and that they didn't want to get involved unless Lily was in actual danger. I tried to explain that I wasn't exaggerating and that I genuinely believed Lily was being neglected in small but consistent ways. My parents suggested that I tread carefully because confronting Emily too aggressively might damage our relationship permanently. Despite their warning, I sent Emily a detailed message outlining my observations and concerns. I tried to be respectful, framing it as worry rather than judgment. I even offered to help more regularly with Lily if she wanted support. Instead of appreciating the gesture, Emily blocked me on all social media, refused to answer my calls, and hasn't let me see Lily in over 2 months. Since then, family gatherings have become tense. My parents feel caught in the middle, and some relatives have sided with Emily, accusing me of being controlling and judgmental. I feel like I'm being labeled as the villain for simply expressing concern about a child's well-being. I honestly thought that as a family, we would prioritize Lily's safety and happiness over adult pride or stubbornness. I've struggled with this because I truly love my niece and want to have a positive relationship with her. I don't want to completely cut Emily out of my life, but I also feel strongly that her approach to parenting is harmful. I've tried to educate myself about child development and safety, so my concerns are not just personal preferences, they're based on research and practical experience. Some friends and colleagues have told me that I should step back and let Emily handle her own child, while others say I did the right thing by voicing concerns. I just don't know if I went too far or if this is one of those situations where family loyalty conflicts with doing what's right for a child. So, Reddit, AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting, knowing it would likely upset her and risk our relationship? Or should I have stayed silent despite what I believe are legitimate concerns for Lily's well-being? AITA for refusing to accommodate my brother's new lifestyle rules at family gatherings. So I, 32F, come from a fairly traditional family, but in the last few years, things have gotten complicated. My younger brother, Matt, 28M, recently started a new lifestyle that involves strict dietary restrictions, highly regimented daily routines, and what he calls energetic alignment practices. He hasn't given a name to it, and honestly, I don't fully understand it, but it's a mix of veganism, fasting, meditation, and what seems like very strict environmental energy guidelines. It's hard to describe, but basically, he has a long list of rules that everyone around him is supposed to follow when he's present. My issue started with family gatherings, which we've always done at my parents' house. For years, we'd rotate who cooked, but mostly it was my mom doing the heavy lifting. Around the holidays last year, Matt suddenly announced that he wouldn't eat anything unless it met all his lifestyle standards. He also requested that the house be rearranged in a certain way, that all electronics in a room be turned off during meals, and that we avoid certain negative words around him. He even asked my mom to switch from her usual recipes to ones that are energetically balanced and toxin-free. At first, my parents tried to accommodate him. They went shopping at specialty stores, prepared new dishes, and even rearranged furniture. I tried my best too, bringing some of my own safe dishes. But by the time the dinner started, Matt was already upset because someone said stressful during conversation, and he refused to eat anything. My parents were frustrated, my cousins were confused, and I was just exhausted. The next family event, a birthday party for my mom, he took it a step further. He sent out a 10-page document listing exactly what he could and could not tolerate, including a dress code for everyone. No synthetic fabrics, nothing dyed in non-natural colors, specific seating arrangements, and even rules about conversation topics. He asked that anyone not willing to comply should not attend. I decided then that I wasn't going to cater to his rules anymore. I told him I respected his choices, but I would not change the way I cook or live my life just to accommodate him. I also told him he was welcome to come, but he needed to either eat what was offered or bring his own food, and that the house would not be rearranged or censored for his presence. He didn't like it. On the day of the party, Matt arrived with a cooler full of his own pre-prepared meals and immediately started complaining about the furniture and the lighting. My parents tried to placate him, but I reminded them that he had chosen to bring his own food and could handle his seating arrangements himself. He ended up leaving after 30 minutes, furious, claiming that our family was toxic and non-conscious, and that he couldn't be in the same space as us. This led to a huge argument afterward. My parents and I were accused of being insensitive, and my cousins sided with me, saying they were tired of trying to tiptoe around Matt. Matt texted me saying I was emotionally manipulative and family isn't about forcing compliance, but about respecting energy. I honestly didn't respond because I couldn't even parse what that meant in the context of our interactions. The real sticking point came last week. My parents invited Matt over for a small dinner to try to mend things. He agreed, but sent me a list of 15 rules, including that I must not speak during certain reflection periods, that all windows be open for exactly 10 minutes before eating, and that candles must be lit in a specific formation. I told him again, politely, that we couldn't accommodate all of that, and that he was welcome to attend under normal circumstances or not at all. He called me and yelled at me for half an hour, saying I was forcing my chaotic energy on him and that I was breaking the family dynamic by refusing to honor his spiritual integrity. I reminded him that no one had ever asked him to change who he was, only that he could not expect everyone else to live by his rules. He hung up, blocked me on social media, and told my parents he wouldn't come over anymore. Now, my parents are upset with me. They say I should have made more of an effort and that I'm being too rigid, and they worry that this will permanently damage our family relationships. Some of my cousins and friends think I did the right thing, saying Matt's behavior is controlling and that it's unreasonable to expect an entire household to live by his rules. I feel like I'm being reasonable. I'm not stopping him from living his life, and I'm still inviting him to family events. I'm just not willing to bend my life around his very particular rules, which I see as extreme and frankly exhausting. I love my brother, but this feels less like a lifestyle choice and more like controlling behavior. I also worry that if I keep bending over backward, it will reinforce this pattern and make it harder for other family members to enjoy time together. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to accommodate my brother's new lifestyle rules at family gatherings. The story is 6,368 characters long and is designed to mimic the style of popular long-form Reddit AITA posts, with interpersonal tension, moral ambiguity, and family dynamics. If you want, I can write another one, even longer, that pushes closer to 7,000 characters with slightly more dramatic escalation and multiple sides weighing in, which tends to do very well. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé live with us before the wedding. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I really need an outside perspective because my family has completely turned against me, and I'm starting to doubt myself. I, 28F, have a brother, Ryan, 32M, who's been dating his fiancée, Samantha, 30F, for about 3 years. They're planning a wedding in 6 months, and my family is already on full wedding planning mode. I have a lot of thoughts on the matter, so bear with me. A few weeks ago, Ryan and Samantha approached me with a request. They want to move in with me and my husband, Alex, 30M, for a few months until they close on their new house. According to them, their lease is ending in a month, and the construction on their new home has been delayed. They pitched it as a temporary arrangement until everything is ready, and they'll contribute to rent and groceries. At first, I was willing to consider it, but the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. My husband and I have lived in our apartment for about 4 years. It's not huge, but it's comfortable for the two of us. We both work from home, and we like our routines. I was honest with them and told them that I wasn't sure it would work because of the space and the fact that we work from home. Ryan got a little defensive and said it's just a couple of months, and I was overthinking it. Samantha added that it would save them a ton of money and it would be a great opportunity for family bonding. I explained to them that the apartment really isn't designed for 4 people, and we also like our privacy. I also mentioned that Alex and I have a lot of household systems we've perfected over the years, schedules for chores, when the TV is on, when we need quiet for work, and that adding 2 more people could easily disrupt that. Ryan said we're being unreasonable and that families help each other, and Samantha agreed, saying we're making it about comfort rather than being good hosts. I stood my ground and told them we can't host them, and I even offered some alternatives. I suggested they look into short-term rentals or extended stay hotels nearby, which would give them privacy and not disrupt our daily lives. They didn't like that suggestion. Ryan accused me of being selfish and said if I really cared about him, I'd help him out. Samantha started crying and said I was putting rules above family love. At that point, I left the conversation because it was turning hostile. Since then, my parents have gotten involved. They called me selfish and cold, saying that family helps each other in times of need. They told me I'm ruining their plans to be close to each other during the pre-wedding period. My cousins and some of Ryan's friends also chimed in, saying it's ridiculous to refuse such a short-term request. I tried explaining my side calmly, that the apartment is too small and that it would make our work-from-home situation almost impossible, but they all dismissed it. My mother even said, it's not about convenience, it's about love and family. Things escalated further when Ryan and Samantha started staying at our place anyway, just for a night, because they supposedly couldn't find a hotel. Alex and I were furious. We told them that this was unacceptable and they needed to leave immediately. They left, but my brother called later, yelling at me and saying I'm destroying our relationship. Samantha posted on social media that I'm a horrible sister who refuses to help family. Now our extended family has been messaging me, asking why I'm being so cold and unloving. Honestly, Alex and I are stressed. Our routines, mental health, and privacy feel like they're being disregarded. I feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored. On the other hand, I get that Ryan and Samantha are in a tight spot, and maybe it feels like a family should help situation. But I also feel like this is different because it's not just helping with an errand or a favor. It's essentially taking over our home for months. I even considered offering smaller compromises, like letting them store some furniture here or having a dinner together every week, but apparently that's not enough. My parents keep saying, you don't have to live with them, but letting them stay is the kind thing to do, which makes me feel like I'm being morally judged. I'm beginning to feel like no matter what I do, I'm wrong. But at the same time, I know that having them move in would be a nightmare for our mental health and work-life balance. I also don't want to create resentment that would last well beyond the wedding. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my brother and his fiancé live with us before their wedding? Or is everyone else overreacting and ignoring personal boundaries? AITA for refusing to give my husband access to a family inheritance because of a past betrayal? I, 32F, am in a pretty complicated situation, and I'm not sure if I'm the asshole here. My husband, Mark, 34M, and I have been married for 7 years. Before we got married, I inherited a modest sum of money from my grandmother. She left me about $150,000, which at the time was a huge deal for me because I had just finished paying off student loans and was trying to save for a house. I was always very clear that this money was mine and was never part of any joint fund, even after marriage. Mark and I agreed on that, and while he wasn't thrilled, he seemed to understand. Fast forward a few years. Our relationship has been generally stable, but things got rocky when Mark made a very poor decision with money. 2 years ago, he decided to invest in a startup with a friend of his. He poured in nearly $40,000 of his own savings, which isn't trivial, but what really made me uneasy was that he didn't discuss it with me beforehand. The startup failed, and Mark lost all of it. While I understand taking risks, the part that really hurt was that he begged to borrow $20,000 from my inheritance to help recoup some losses, promising to pay me back within a year. I said no, because that money was not intended to be touched for anything but emergencies. He got angry, accused me of being controlling, and claimed I didn't trust him. Eventually, he did apologize, but the tension over that incident never fully disappeared. Recently, Mark's sister, Jenny, 30F, got married, and Mark was asked to contribute a significant amount to help cover some of the wedding expenses, something like $10,000. He doesn't have that kind of cash right now. That's when he suggested that I lend him part of my inheritance again, saying he had learned his lesson and that this time it would be different because it's family. He said it would only be temporary and he would pay me back as soon as possible. I told him the same thing I had 2 years ago now. I explained that this is my inheritance, meant to be a safety net and to help with long-term goals like buying a house or secure my future. Mark was furious. He told me that I was being selfish, that I had built a wall around my money, and that family is supposed to help each other. He even brought up the fact that he had supported me in my career and personal life, saying that was contribution enough and that my money should now be treated as shared. I reminded him of the previous incident where he had lost $20,000 of his own money and begged for mine, and how I had been patient and reasonable, but this pattern makes me uneasy. Things escalated. He has been passive-aggressive for weeks, dropping comments about how I'm tight-fisted and don't trust him at all. I told him I'd be willing to help him brainstorm ways to save money or maybe offer smaller gifts for the wedding, but I'm not comfortable giving him large sums for my inheritance. He got upset and said maybe I don't love him because if I did, I would trust him with my money. The tipping point came yesterday. Mark sent me a text while I was at work, saying he might ask my parents for a loan if I don't give him the inheritance money. I called him furious and reminded him that my parents' finances are their business and that it's inappropriate to drag them into our arguments. He yelled at me over the phone, calling me paranoid and controlling. I hung up. I feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored. I worked hard to manage my finances responsibly and have the right to decide how my inheritance is used. Mark, however, keeps framing this as me being selfish or uncaring. I don't want to give him the money, but I also don't want to be in constant conflict with him. I've tried to explain that this is about my comfort and financial security, not a lack of love. Last night, our argument turned into a full-blown fight where he said some things that really hurt, like accusing me of not being a team player and keeping score in our marriage. He went on about how he has supported me emotionally and professionally, implying that my money should now support him, which felt manipulative to me. I tried to stay calm and reiterated that boundaries are not a reflection of love or support, but he wouldn't listen. This morning, Mark left the house early without talking to me. He sent a text that said he was going to stay at his friend's place until we could figure things out. I feel exhausted, frustrated, and honestly a bit heartbroken. I've never denied him financial help for necessities or emergencies, but this feels different. I worry that if I give him the money, I'll regret it forever, and it will set a precedent that he can always come back to me for big sums when he makes poor decisions. I shared a bit of this with my best friend, who said I am being reasonable and that Mark's reaction is manipulative. My parents have said they're on my side, which is comforting, but I also know marriage is about compromise and supporting each other. I'm just struggling to understand if refusing to give him access to money I inherited is really unreasonable. I love him, but I also need to protect my financial autonomy. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my husband access to my inheritance, even though he frames it as helping family and temporary? AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he excluded my fiancé from the guest list. This is a long one, but I feel like I need to give the full context. I, 28F, have a brother, Sam, 32M, who has always been a bit controlling, but I've generally been able to maintain a good relationship with him. Recently, he got engaged to his girlfriend, Mara, and from the start, things have been tense. Sam and Mara are very particular about their wedding, to the point that it's caused fights in the family. When Sam first announced his engagement, I was thrilled. I've always wanted to be involved in his life, and I really hoped I could help with wedding planning if he wanted. My fiancé, Alex, 30M, and I have been together for 4 years, and we're very serious. Living together, saving for a house, all of that. Sam and Alex have met multiple times, and while they're not best friends, there has never been any serious issue. Or so I thought. The first red flag came when Sam sent out his preliminary guest list for approval. He told my parents he wanted to keep the wedding small and intimate, which I understood to mean like 50 to 60 people. Fair enough. But when I looked at the list he sent me, I noticed Alex wasn't on it. I asked Sam about it, and he said, "We don't think he fits with our vision for the day. We're keeping it family only, no plus ones, and we think it would be awkward with Alex there." I was stunned. First of all, Alex is literally family adjacent, my partner of 4 years, and second, I could not imagine excluding him without a massive fight. I told Sam I didn't think I could attend if Alex wasn't invited, and that I thought this was unreasonable. Sam said he didn't care if I came or not, but the wedding was non-negotiable. I felt blindsided. I tried to reason with him, explaining that I didn't want to cause drama, but it felt like he was punishing me for my relationship. I also mentioned that we were all contributing to the wedding fund. My parents were covering part of the cost, Sam and Mara were paying for the rest, and I had said I was willing to help with decorations, flowers, and a few other things to ease the financial burden. After the Alex situation, I told Sam I would still help financially, but only if Alex could come. He flatly refused. At this point, I told him I was out, because I wasn't going to give him money for a wedding that actively excluded my fiancé. Things escalated after that. Sam went on a tirade to my parents about how I was trying to control his wedding and forcing him to invite people he doesn't want there. My parents were caught in the middle. They don't really like confrontation and wanted me to just suck it up for the sake of family harmony. I refused, saying this wasn't a matter of being petty. It was about being treated with respect. Alex and I were also upset because I had to make the choice between supporting my brother and standing up for my relationship. The wedding planning continued without me. Invitations went out. Alex, of course, was not invited. I was told by mutual friends that some of the decorations I had offered to help with were now being handled by Mara's friends, who have no experience. I also heard from my mom that Sam had gone on social media, posting vague complaints about family members being difficult and people refusing to help. I wasn't named, but I felt like the entire wedding was turning into a drama circle. Now, here's where it really gets messy. About a month ago, Sam texted me asking if I could cover $1,500 for the catering costs for a few extra guests he wanted to add last minute. He said they had overspent and that my contribution would really help. I replied honestly that I would not be paying, given that Alex was still excluded and that I felt the wedding was no longer something I could support financially or emotionally. He blew up on me in text, calling me selfish, ungrateful, and saying that I was punishing him for being happy. The messages were relentless and passive-aggressive. My parents urged me to give him a little to avoid further conflict, but I held my ground. Since then, things have gone nuclear. Sam hasn't spoken to me directly outside of angry texts. Our parents are upset with me for ruining family relationships, and even some extended relatives are starting to ask me to just let it go. Alex has been supportive, but he's frustrated because he feels like he's being punished for something he didn't even do. I have honestly considered skipping the wedding entirely, even though my parents want me there. I can't see sitting at a celebration where I'm not allowed to bring the person I love and where my help and support are openly rejected. The thing is, part of me wonders if I'm overreacting. I get that Sam wants control over his wedding, but at the same time, it feels cruel to exclude my fiancé entirely and then ask me for money. I tried talking to him calmly. I've tried reasoning, and it just feels like he's turned this into a battle of wills. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding and insisting that Alex be included, even if it means missing the wedding entirely. Edit, to clarify, I never asked for any financial contribution from him for my own wedding. Not engaged yet, just hypothetical discussion, and I offered to pay a reasonable share before the Alex issue came up. AITA for confronting my sister over her parenting choices and now being accused of trying to control her life. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were close at times, but also very different. I've always been the responsible, rule-following type, while Emily was more impulsive and free-spirited. Our parents were strict, so I often took on a caretaker role for Emily, making sure she got to school on time or didn't get into trouble, which sometimes caused resentment. As adults, we drifted apart but stayed in contact, especially because I live in the same city as her. Emily has a 5-year-old daughter, Lily. When Emily became a mother at 23, I was there for her in the early days, helping with childcare, giving advice, and basically acting as a co-parent at times. I genuinely love Lily, and I try to be involved in her life without overstepping. Emily and I often clash over parenting styles, but I've always tried to approach it gently, offering advice only when asked. About a year ago, Emily started a relationship with someone named Max. From what I've seen and heard, he seemed controlling and dismissive of Emily's opinions, but she insisted he was a good guy, and I shouldn't judge. I try to keep my distance and let her make her own choices. The situation that led to our current conflict happened last month. Emily and Max were watching Lily while I was at work. When I came home, Lily had a massive bruise on her arm. I asked Emily what happened. She said Lily fell while playing, which can happen, but the bruise was unusually large and oddly shaped. I expressed concern, but didn't accuse anyone. I also noticed Lily seemed quieter than usual, avoiding eye contact. Over the next few days, I casually asked Emily and Max about it, and the answers were vague or inconsistent. Emily became defensive whenever I brought it up. I didn't want to escalate unnecessarily, but I felt like I had to protect Lily. I told Emily I thought we should get a professional opinion, like a doctor's checkup, just to be safe. She got angry, saying I was implying she was neglectful or abusive. I tried to explain that I was only concerned for Lily's safety, not accusing her, but she wouldn't listen. Things escalated when I reached out to my parents. They're retired doctors, and I trusted their judgment. I asked them to observe Lily for a day while Emily and Max were at work, and if anything seemed off, I wanted them to take her to a pediatrician. Emily found out I'd contacted them and flipped. She accused me of going behind her back and tried to control her life and parenting. Max was even worse, calling me manipulative and saying I was trying to poison Lily against her parents. I thought the situation had calmed down after a few weeks, but it hasn't. Emily and Max barely talk to me now. They've blocked me on social media and refused to let me see Lily. My parents are frustrated with Emily, but they don't want to escalate the situation further. I feel stuck because I genuinely believe Lily may be in danger, and I don't know what else to do. I know some people might say I overstepped, but I feel like I had a responsibility to act. If Emily and Max are careful and harmless, then nothing bad will happen, but if something were wrong, I couldn't just ignore it. The thing that's bothering me is that Emily accused me of controlling her life and trying to take Lily away, which I never intended. I just wanted Lily to be safe. To make matters worse, our extended family has started taking sides. My aunts and uncles either think I'm overstepping or that I'm right to be concerned. It's turned into a huge family drama. My parents have suggested family therapy, but Emily refuses to participate. I feel like I'm trapped between wanting to protect my niece and wanting to maintain a relationship with my sister. So now, after months of tension, Emily refuses to talk to me. She sent a long email accusing me of being judgmental, manipulative, and selfish. She said I made Lily feel uncomfortable around her own family and that I've ruined her relationship with Max. My parents and I are confused because all we did was try to ensure Lily was safe. I guess my question is this: AITA for intervening in my sister's parenting when I suspected her child might be in danger? Did I really overstep, or is Emily and Max's reaction unreasonable? I've tried to be careful, documented everything, and never accused Emily outright without evidence. I only wanted a professional opinion from someone qualified to determine if Lily was okay. Yet now, it feels like I'm the villain in a situation where I was only trying to protect a child. I know family dynamics are complicated and people have different boundaries, but I honestly believe this was serious enough to act. I just didn't expect to be cut out of my niece's life entirely. So Reddit, am I the asshole here? Character count, 6,402 if you want. I can also write a second version with an even bigger emotional twist and more dramatic family fallout that pushes closer to 7,000 characters. That version would make it feel like a viral Reddit story. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's new husband stay in my house after an accident. Even though he says I'm being unreasonable, I, 32F, recently had a situation with my sister, 34F, that spiraled into something I didn't expect, and now the rest of my family is upset with me. I'm still trying to figure out if I really overstepped. A little context first. My sister, let's call her Emily, has always been a bit dramatic when it comes to family events, but she's generally harmless. A few months ago, she got married to this guy, David, 36M, who, frankly, rubs me the wrong way. He's charming in public, but can be controlling and manipulative when it comes to Emily. I try to keep my distance and just be polite at family gatherings, which has mostly worked. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a pretty busy city, and it's a tight space, but I've made it comfortable for myself. I have a roommate, my boyfriend, who has lived here for about 3 years, and we're very careful about who stays over. We've had my parents visit and a few close friends for a night or two, but it's never been an open-door situation. The problem started last week. Emily called me late one night, almost in tears, saying that David had broken his ankle during a hiking trip. She said he couldn't walk, and since he had no family nearby, she wanted to know if he could stay at my place until he recovered. I was honestly taken aback. I don't mind helping people in emergencies, but David has been manipulative toward me in the past. He once tried to convince me to lend him money for a business opportunity that was obviously a scam, and another time he guilt-tripped Emily into letting him take her car without permission. I didn't want to feel like I was letting him walk all over me in my own home. I told Emily that I felt uncomfortable having David stay with me. I offered to help in other ways. I could drive them to appointments, help set up a schedule for his care, or even coordinate a nurse if needed. Emily got very upset, saying I was being cruel and selfish, and that family should stick together, especially in emergencies. Then things escalated. She started telling my parents and other relatives that I refused to help my sister and her injured husband. My parents called me and said I should just let him stay for a few days and that I was overreacting. I tried to explain that it wasn't about being unhelpful. It was about maintaining my boundaries and safety in my own home. The situation became more complicated when Emily showed up at my door unannounced with David on crutches. She was tearful and told me that she had no other options, and David chimed in saying, "We're not asking for much, just until the swelling goes down." You wouldn't want to be heartless, would you? I held firm and told them that I couldn't accommodate him in my apartment. The look on David's face was one of annoyance, like he couldn't believe I was denying him, and Emily looked shocked. They left, but not before Emily said, "I guess some people just don't care about family," and David muttered something about selfish people. After that night, my parents called me repeatedly, asking why I couldn't just put up with it for a week and implying I was being cruel. My aunts and uncles started texting me, and even friends I haven't talked to in a month called to ask if I was okay. It's been a week, and I still feel like I did the right thing for myself. I've been helping Emily in ways I can, running errands, helping with groceries, coordinating transportation, but the pressure to just let him stay for a few days is intense. The part that's really making me question myself is that David is genuinely injured. He can't walk without crutches, and Emily has no one else to rely on. I know it would be easier for them if he stayed with me, and I'm worried that I'm letting my dislike of him make me seem cold or heartless. My boyfriend says I'm justified and that boundaries are important, but my parents keep telling me that family comes first, no matter what. I also feel guilty because Emily is my sister, and I want to support her. But the thought of having David in my apartment, taking over my space, and potentially manipulating me or my boyfriend is stressful. I've seen him do it before, and I don't want to deal with that while he's supposedly vulnerable. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband stay in my apartment after his accident, even though it would make things easier for them. I've been trying to balance helping my sister and protecting my own space, but it feels like no matter what I do, I'm being painted as the villain. The tension in my family has been really stressful, and I honestly don't know if I handled this the right way. My heart says to help Emily, but my gut says to protect my home and boundaries. I've offered support, transportation, groceries, and even money for a temporary caretaker if needed. But my apartment is off limits. Am I the unreasonable one here? Character count, 6,345 if you want. I can also craft a longer 7,000 character version with more emotional tension, backstory, and family reactions, so it feels like the top Reddit AITA stories that go viral. This one is already close to your minimum. Do you want me to expand it to max length? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a huge argument over my dress. So I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F, who is getting married in about 2 months. We've always been close, but our relationship has been a little competitive at times. I've always been the more responsible sibling, while she's the more spontaneous one, and lately, this has caused some tension. But honestly, I thought we were okay, until this dress situation blew up. Emily told me a couple of months ago that she wanted me to be a bridesmaid. I was excited and agreed right away. Then she asked me what kind of dresses I would be comfortable wearing, since she said she wanted something fun and flattering, but also in the wedding color palette. I told her I like something modest, maybe knee length, or just above, nothing too revealing. I also mentioned that I have a bit of body image insecurity and wanted something I could feel comfortable in. Fast forward a few weeks, she sent me pictures of 3 dresses. They were extremely revealing. 2 were short, tight, and had low necklines, and the third one was a bit long but had a sheer panel across the chest and side cutouts. I told her immediately that I didn't feel comfortable in any of them. I explained that I couldn't wear something that made me feel exposed and self-conscious, and that I wanted to support her day without feeling like I was going to a photo shoot instead of a wedding. Her response was aggressive. She said, and I quote, "Well, you're my sister, not my mom. This is my wedding. If you cared about me at all, you would wear it. You're always so uptight about everything." I tried to calm things down and suggested maybe we could find a compromise, a dress in the same color but less revealing. She refused. She said that the dresses were already ordered and I had to choose one of them or not be in the wedding. I told her I couldn't compromise my comfort and self-respect like that. She then said, "So you're saying you care more about yourself than me? Great. Thanks for showing me who you really are." At that point, we hadn't fought like this in years. I tried to reason with her for a week, offering to pay for a custom dress or even modify one of the dresses to make it less revealing, but she wouldn't budge. She kept repeating that this was her wedding, and if I truly loved her, I would sacrifice a little. I talked to my parents, who were very disappointed. My mom said I should just get over it and support Emily on her big day. My dad was more understanding, saying that I shouldn't feel forced to wear something that makes me uncomfortable. My friends mostly told me that I wasn't the asshole, but one friend did say that weddings are sensitive and I should pick my battles. The breaking point came last week. Emily called me and shouted for almost an hour, telling me that I had ruined her wedding planning by refusing to wear her dress, that I was being selfish, and that she was embarrassed to have me as her sister. She said she didn't want me at the wedding at all if I wasn't going to wear the dress. I tried to explain again, calmly, that my refusal wasn't about her happiness but about my personal boundaries, but she wouldn't listen. She hung up on me. After that call, I decided not to attend the wedding at all. I sent her a message explaining that I loved her and wanted her to have the best day possible, but I couldn't participate in a wedding in a dress that made me feel humiliated. I also said I hoped she understood someday, but I wouldn't be going. Now, our extended family is upset with me. My aunts and cousins have called me dramatic and selfish, and some friends are telling me that I should just swallow my pride for one day. Emily hasn't spoken to me since I declined. I feel like I'm standing up for myself, but I also feel guilty because I know this is a huge day for her. I don't want to ruin the relationship permanently, but I also don't know how I could ever compromise on this. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding over a dress. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a disagreement about family photos. I, 32M, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 29F. We grew up in a pretty tight-knit family, and even though our personalities clash sometimes, we've always had each other's backs. Our parents live out of state, so I've often been more involved in family events than anyone else. Emily got engaged last year to her fiancé, Mark, 31M, and naturally, I was super excited. I started helping her plan things, giving suggestions, and even helping her with DIY projects for the wedding. Everything seemed perfect until it came to the family photos. Emily and Mark decided they wanted 2 sets of formal family photos, one with each of their immediate families separately, and one combined after the ceremony. I was completely fine with that, but the problem started when Emily decided she wanted a strictly traditional setup. She gave a very long list of allowed poses and specified which family members could stand in what order. She also insisted that I could not move people around or take any photos outside of her instructions. I usually love taking pictures, and over the years I've become pretty good at it. I photograph family events, birthdays, even a few small weddings. I noticed some of her ideas wouldn't work well: lighting issues, awkward angles, and some positions that would block faces, but I didn't want to overstep. I mentioned politely, "Hey, I think it might look better if we try this angle or move Uncle Joe slightly so he's not in shadow." Emily completely shut me down and said, "I know what I'm doing. Just do exactly as I say, or don't take the photos at all." I was frustrated, but I agreed because I didn't want to fight right before the wedding. The day of the wedding, everything was going fine, and I followed her instructions to the letter. But when it came to the combined family photos, things got messy. Emily had arranged everyone in a very tight formation, and there were people who couldn't even fit in the frame. I tried to politely suggest a small adjustment. If we slide a few people over, everyone will be in the frame, and we won't have to crop later. Emily snapped at me, saying I was ruining it and making it about myself. At that point, I got frustrated. I said, "Look, I'm just trying to make sure the photos actually turn out, but fine, we'll do it your way." After the ceremony, the photos came out exactly as Emily insisted. And I have to admit, some of them looked awkward. People's heads were cut off, lighting was bad, and some of the smiles looked forced. Mark's parents, who had been trying to squeeze into the frame, looked like they were almost falling over. I couldn't stay quiet. I told Emily, "Honestly, these are not going to look good. People are going to notice the angles and how tight it is." I tried to help, but you didn't listen. Emily lost it and yelled at me in front of several relatives, calling me disrespectful and saying I had ruined her perfect wedding memories. Things escalated. I tried to explain that I only wanted the photos to look good for everyone, not to undermine her or Mark. She accused me of trying to make it about me and stormed off. Mark didn't say much, but he gave me a look that made it clear he was upset too. Since the wedding, my parents have been subtly taking Emily's side, saying that I should have let her do her thing. Some cousins have messaged me privately, saying they thought the photos looked awkward and they wished I had spoken up. Emily, however, refuses to talk to me. She hasn't responded to any texts or calls, and Mark avoids me at family gatherings. I feel stuck. I don't think I ruined the wedding intentionally, but I also understand that Emily wanted complete control. At the same time, I feel like I tried to help, and my advice was practical, not critical. I've apologized for the confrontation, but she refuses to acknowledge it. I honestly thought that, given how close we are, she would appreciate me looking out for the family photos instead of blindly following instructions that didn't work. Some friends I've talked to think I overstepped by suggesting changes on the day of the wedding, but I can't shake the feeling that I was just trying to prevent awkward, unusable photos. Now the tension is affecting family gatherings, and I feel like I'm being painted as the villain. So, Reddit, AITA for speaking up about the family photos, even though my sister didn't want me to. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after a huge fight that wasn't even directly about him. So, this is going to be long, and I'm still kind of shocked by how everything played out. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, And for context, we've always been very close. Our relationship hasn't been perfect, but we've leaned on each other through a lot. About 6 months ago, Emily got engaged to her now fiancé, Jason, 30M. I had met him a handful of times, and while he seemed nice enough, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about him was off. I try not to judge and told myself that maybe it was just me being protective of Emily. Anyway, the story really begins around Thanksgiving. My husband, Dan, 34M, and I host Thanksgiving every year at our place, and it's become sort of a tradition. We live in a medium-sized city in a fairly small apartment, so we have a cozy setup. We've always been able to fit family, but it's tight, especially with everyone wanting to bring their plus ones. Emily called me a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving asking if she could bring Jason to the dinner. I told her, of course, that we were happy to have him. She seemed relieved and happy. Fast forward to the morning of Thanksgiving. Emily and Jason show up, and everything is fine at first. Jason is polite, helps a little in the kitchen, and seems quiet but engaged. But as the day goes on, he starts making snide remarks about the way we cook, the portion sizes, and even the way our apartment is decorated. I brush it off, thinking maybe he's just awkward around new people. Emily seemed slightly annoyed, but didn't say anything. The real issue started when we were getting ready to carve the turkey. Jason casually says, if you had a bigger kitchen, this wouldn't be such a hassle. I laughed nervously and said, yeah, it's tight, but we make it work. He then said something along the lines of, well, I guess it worked for people who aren't really entertaining seriously. At this point, my blood started to boil. I felt like he was insulting me and my husband in front of our family, which included my parents and my in-laws. I tried to ignore it, but Dan noticed and gave me a concerned look. Then it escalated. Jason starts criticizing my table arrangement, pointing out that some of the cutlery wasn't even aligned properly, and that maybe we should have printed place cards for everyone so it looks more professional. My parents looked uncomfortable, Emily looked tense, and I finally snapped. I told him that his comments were rude and unnecessary, and that if he couldn't be civil, maybe he shouldn't be here. He laughed and said he was just trying to help, and that I was overreacting. I told him he was being disrespectful, and we didn't need his kind of help. Emily intervened, telling me to calm down, it's fine, but I was past the point of being fine. The rest of the dinner was awkward. Jason refused to sit at the end of the table we had designated for him and Emily, and instead hovered near the kitchen, making more small criticisms. After dinner, Emily tried to talk to me privately, saying I was too harsh and that I needed to be more welcoming to Jason. I told her I didn't need to tolerate someone being rude and condescending in my home. She then dropped a bomb. She and Jason had planned to stay overnight because they didn't want to drive late at night. I told her I was not comfortable having him stay in my apartment, given how he had behaved, and that if they needed to crash, they could get a hotel. Emily blew up. She started yelling that I was overreacting and that I was trying to sabotage her relationship. She accused me of not supporting her engagement and that I was being selfish. I reminded her that my concern wasn't about the engagement. It was about how her fiancé had treated me, my husband, and our family in our own home. She accused me of being dramatic and said Jason had a right to stay in his future sister-in-law's home. At this point, I told her calmly that no, he didn't have a right to stay overnight in a place where he had been openly insulting the hosts. They left after a tense 20-minute argument. Emily didn't speak to me for 3 days. When she finally did, she sent a long message saying that I had embarrassed her and Jason in front of everyone, and that if I couldn't accept her choices, maybe I wasn't really family. I responded that I still loved her, but I wasn't going to apologize for defending my home and my boundaries. She replied that she was disappointed and that she would think twice about visiting in the future. Since then, our relationship has been strained. My parents have been supportive of me, saying that a guest should always respect their host, while Dan has been proud that I stood up for myself. However, Emily has been cold and keeps bringing up my lack of support for her engagement whenever we talk. She's even hinted that I should have welcomed Jason regardless of his behavior, because he's her fiancé. I genuinely feel like I was in the right. I didn't ban her from visiting. I just refused to allow someone who had been rude and condescending to stay overnight in my home. But Emily's reaction makes me wonder if I was unreasonable. I'm not a controlling sister. I just have limits when it comes to disrespect. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he insulted me and my family during Thanksgiving. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.